I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, one where I could actually get killed. I mean, growing up in Bankhead, Atlanta, it ain't like I was blind to how the streets worked. You knew where to go and where not to go. You stayed out of certain neighborhoods, didn't talk to certain people, and tried to keep your head down if you weren't in that life. But I wasn't in it, you know? I ain't never thought I'd get pulled into it. It all started a few months ago when I had to move back in with my cousin Terry. Times were tough and I couldn't keep up with rent on my own, so he offered me a spot in his place. Now Terry was always in and out of trouble. Everybody knew him for running with the wrong crowd, but he kept that part of his life separate from family. I knew what he was into, but as long as he wasn't bringing that stuff to me, I figured we could live under the same roof without problem. Terry lived in a beat-up apartment complex right in the middle of Bankhead. You couldn't walk down the street without seeing some dudes posted up on the corner watching cars roll by with that mean stare like they was daring somebody to test them. The first few weeks were fine though. Terry and me kept to ourselves, worked our jobs, and tried to mind our own business. He wasn't acting like he was involved in any of his usual mess, so I thought maybe he was turning over a new leaf. But that all changed one Friday night. I had just gotten off work from the warehouse, came home, and Terry wasn't around. He'd left some beers in the fridge, so I cracked one open and sat down to watch the game. It wasn't even an hour later that I heard a knock on the door. Not a normal knock though. It was like someone was trying to break the damn door down. I opened it, and standing there was this dude I didn't recognize. He was big, tatted up, and had this dead look in his eyes like he was about business. "Where's Terry at?" he asked, his voice low but sharp. I told him I didn't know, which was true. Terry hadn't said nothing to me about where he was going. The guy gave me this look like he was trying to figure out if I was lying. Then he just nodded and walked off, disappearing into the shadows. That's when the tension started building, when I started feeling like something bad was coming. Terry came back late that night, but he looked different, agitated. I asked him what was up, but he just brushed it off, saying it was nothing. I didn't press him. I figured whatever he was into, I didn't need to know. But over the next few days, I kept seeing strange dudes around the block, people I hadn't seen before. They weren't just hanging out, they were watching. The vibe in the neighborhood shifted, and you could feel it in the air like a storm was about to hit. Then one night it did. I was asleep when I heard what sounded like fireworks outside, but it wasn't the 4th of July. I jumped up, heart pounding, and ran to the window. Outside on the street below, there was a full-on gunfight going down. I'm talking cars peeling off, guys ducking behind trash cans, bullets flying. It felt unreal, like I was watching a movie, but this was real life, and it was right outside my window. I hit the floor, crawling to the kitchen where Terry was sitting at the table, cool as ever. I couldn't believe it. "Terry, what the hell is going on, man?" I shouted. He just looked up at me, his face stone cold, and said, "It's handled." What the hell did that even mean? Handled? Who handles gunfights like it's nothing? I was shaking, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. That's when I realized Terry was in deeper than I ever thought, and whatever was going on outside, he was a part of it. The gunfire finally died down after what felt like forever, but I couldn't sleep that night. Every little sound made me jump, and I kept thinking about that dude who came knocking at our door. Was he involved? Was he one of the shooters? The next morning, things felt off. The neighborhood was quieter than usual, like everyone was laying low. I didn't see Terry all day, but I tried to keep myself busy. I didn't want to know what was going on. I figured it was best to stay out of it. But then it happened. I was coming back from the store when I saw a car parked outside our building. A sleek black sedan, tinted windows. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I got closer, I noticed 2 guys standing by it. One of them was the same dude who had knocked on our door a few days ago. Before I could react, they were on me. "Where's Terry?" the big one asked again, this time more aggressive. I didn't even get a chance to respond before they grabbed me and threw me into the back of the car. My mind was racing. What the hell was going on? Why were they coming after me? The car sped off, and I felt every bump in the road as we swerved through the streets. I tried to ask what they wanted, but they ignored me. The guy driving just kept looking in the rearview mirror like he was watching for someone. Finally, we pulled up to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. They dragged me inside and threw me on the floor. My knees hit the concrete hard and I winced in pain. That's when I saw him, Terry, tied up to a chair in the middle of the room. His face was beaten, blood dripping from his nose and mouth. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. "I'm sorry," Terry whispered, his voice cracked and broken. Before I could even process what was happening, one of the guys pulled out a gun and pointed it right at me. "You should have stayed out of it," he said, his voice low and cold. The last thing I heard was the gunshot.